Taking a burrito directly to the face. And man, that one hurt.
Hey, this isn't Taco Bell.
All right, welcome to another ladder race with the TFC versus the Dirty Crabs. And so we are on the coast to coast route. As you can see, doesn't have a lot of flat. Yeah, there's a couple good flat spots, but ultimately, it's basically rolling terrain through all the way till the end, where we end on Jarvis Island after going through the KOM. And so, again, taking a second look with the Velo Viewer, you can really see, and I think the Velo Viewer is the best way to look at this route because while it does not have a lot of elevation gain, when you see the route through that perspective, you can see that it is not really that flat. The couple parts that are flat, um, offer good opportunities to rest, but it is not designed to be completely flat. And so today we have the TFC Mercs versus the Dirty Crabs. And if you look at the roster, you can see that the TFC Mercs have some pretty strong guys, especially looking at their 5 minute and 20-minute power. Got some strong, you know, top tier C's and B racers. They do have one guy in there, Nicholas Rothbard, that looks like could be fairly new to racing or to, ladder racing, but his numbers are, quite down there. And so bravo to him for, joining this race because I'm sure he's going into it expecting this to be tough. And I can tell you, having raced other ladder races and raced, with other riders like some of the guys on the TFC squad and on our squad, this race was a lot tougher than I imagined. So I can only imagine what's going through Nicholas's head, seeing, if he got to see the numbers. Now there's that second rider there in the fourth position for the Mercs, Christopher Beatty, that doesn't show the power data. Same thing with our guy Bart, doesn't show the power data. And that's just, I think, a permissions issue or something like that. But these are some strong riders. I can tell you, now that I'm going back through the race, I can tell you these are some strong riders. So while the numbers don't show there, I can tell you that they're, our groups are pretty well balanced. We got, pretty strong squad. Again, Nicholas, outside of that rider, the TFC squad is pretty strong, pretty well matched up with ours. And so we know that this is going to be, a fairly even race. And, if we don't use our power ups correctly, then we're going to risk having a lot of issues. And speaking of which, the power ups that we ended up getting today are the draft bus and the burrito. And as you can see from the description, the draft bus gives us the best possible draft by increasing the CDA by 25%. For 15 seconds, and the burrito does the opposite. It knocks down the draft for the riders behind you for about 20 seconds, which makes things hard. Definitely makes things hard, and ultimately gamifies these types of events a lot more because you really have to get crafty on when you decide to launch your burrito because you don't want to be the person launching your burrito on the front of your own guys. And I can tell you that's happened to me this week already. And so I'm going to do my best to avoid that kind of a situation again on this race. And so as we get ready to leave the pen here, I start off a lot harder than I probably should have because as, I ramped up quickly and then, recognized that, hey, we started off and really started off at a chill pace, which is great because that means at this point, everybody's waiting for that first sprint segment, in order to really start to, implement any sort of race tactics that, we're going to go through. So the group all just staying together and, really coasting along until we get to that first sprint segment. So now that we've hit the Sasquatch sprint, we are on the outskirts of the jungle-ish area, not quite jungle, the forested area rather, as we pass the diner here. And you can see that, this is really where the tactics begin when it comes to racing, because like I mentioned previously, having the burrito as well as the draft fan, depending on what we get after this banner, is really how we're going to, push the race and really exercise our race strategy. And so, as you can see, I end up with a burrito, and while the pace is a little bit smooth right now and going fairly easy, I know that at this point things are gonna get a lot harder. Uh, on Discord, we were talking about, what power ups we got and how we can start organizing ourselves in order to best use them. And so, just fast forwarding through this part, as you can see, we're all still kind of together and holding fast. Got Deadpool in there commenting. And so, as we start to round this corner, this part starts to slope a bit, and I knew that's where the action was going to begin. So I get told to push up, and we all kind of start pushing up. I end up using my burrito to try and slow them down a bit. But as you can see, we still got a couple TFC riders that are holding on tight, but we've got a nice little split in the group, right around 8 seconds and pushing forward still. And so as we continue on through the forested area, again, it's getting harder as we start to, you know, get, as we start to hit this area, the elevation starts to come up quite a bit. Um, staying in the, 1, 2%, 3%, but ultimately we're still kind of climbing, I guess, or maybe, I guess a little bit of a plateau, looking at the sauce graph there. So we're in a little bit of a plateau, but it's still kind of rolling. So you know, nothing to write home about, but we still got, all of our guys up front doing good, and really making sure that we're planning out, especially as we approach this next sprint, planning out how we're going to attack. You see one of our guys has his burrito. Now I end up slightly behind them, so I got to push hard to get ahead. So I'm not in that burrito draft, because again, when someone's got their burrito, you don't want to be in their wind, so to speak. And so you see this TFC rider is holding on tight. He is not letting go. Neither are the rest of them. And so as we start to approach the sprint, again, it is team tactics. We were talking about, what we're anticipating getting. Now, one thing I did notice is it does feel like every other segment we alternate our power ups. So you can see on the bottom left there, Sauce is telling me that the Woodland Sprint has got either power up, either burrito or draft bus. And so as we approach, I'm trying to hold on towards the front a little bit in case I do get a burrito, then I can, ease up a little bit. And as long as I'm in front of the TFC riders, I can use my burrito. And so as we get ready to cross the sprint here, just looking at what I'm getting. And so ultimately, I think on this one, I got the draft bus. Yep, got the draft bus. And so this means that I'm going to have to really focus on where I'm at. You can see I'm, second wheel right now, and I don't want to use my draft bus at the moment, because we're not at this time pushing hard. And so I don't want to waste it, knowing that, there would be an opportunity to push the pace again and, take advantage of the draft bus. And my avatar ends up sliding off the front, and I just kind of hold my pace, staying in the, upper 200s, low 300s, just to keep the pace going. And I didn't intend on doing a lot of work. You can see it looks like the guys behind us, they're 4 seconds back. The two riders are, someone pushed to try and get back on terms. But so far, we're just the seven of us up front, four of our guys, three of theirs. And it looks like their guys came on terms again. The group came on terms again. So now we're 5-4 and just kind of holding that, 2-3 second gap, 4 second gap between the back two riders. And so as we are all up on the front, still just pushing hard, trying to hold my pace. You see one of our guys uses the burrito, and we start to push the pace further just so that way we can make it a little bit harder. You can see all the red in my graph, and I am at this point, my heart rate's in the upper 170s. My legs are starting to hurt. I am starting to feel it. I'm starting to feel, the fatigue of these last few days of racing. So trainer goes off the front. I do my best to kind of keep my pace to catch up. You see their guy Pedersen comes through, and it's the three of us behind Pedersen, just doing our best to hold his wheel and catch up, but also keep the pace, pushing hard. Because at this point, we want to see, can we drop any of their other guys? So you see Betty comes up, or Beatty comes up. And now one thing to point out, Beatty doesn't have steering. He's the only rider, I believe, that does not have steering. And so he is constantly getting pushed out to the wind and coming back up and pushed out to the wind, which I gotta say that, racing these kinds of races without steering can be, can be life threatening because it makes the race infinitely harder. And so as, we start approaching the rest of this, I'm just going to jump forward to the next part. But you see I shifted left there just to kind of, make sure that I use my steering to my advantage. And again, we have Craig on Discord DSing for us and letting us know, move left, move right, especially when BD is out in the wind, so we can continue to make it hard on that rider. And so again, just continuing to fast forward through this as we do kind of stay together, even though I'm off the front. You see, I'm pushing, pushing hard, staying in my 20-minute power zone, but also trying to push that up a little bit higher. And so as we start to come through the end of this forested area and into the desert, we are hearing from Simon that he is having some technical difficulties and, a mechanical, and ultimately he ends up, his cassette ends up jamming, and he is unable at this point to do anything. And so he is furiously working on getting that fixed. And I mean, just absolute magician, because he ultimately ends up jumping back on and continuing the race to race, but having a mechanical like he did, like physical, could not turn his flywheel, cassette not functioning type of issues. And so bravo to him for being able to, get that figured out and continue and ultimately finish the race. But as you can see right now, he is stuck at 0 watts. And so as we're coming out of the desert here, we are, just holding steady, not, intending on pushing hard. You see, I still got my draft bus. And so we're not intending on pushing hard. We just wanted to make sure that we get through this part together. So fast forwarding through again, climbing, climbing, and more climbing, just holding our wheel. We do, give a little bit of a bump in terms of push wise, but nothing major. And so as we start to come through here, I'm doing my best to kind of rest my legs where I can, drink as much fluids as I can, because at this point, I am really, really regretting life choices. My legs are absolutely wrecked, and I am, starting to feel like I might not be able to finish with this front group. And so, again, I'm trying to rest as much as possible. Thankfully, the group slowed down quite a bit. You can see my from my power graph, I'm in a lot of blue, a lot of gray, and so we just kind of really brought the pace back just enough for me to get some good rest on this flat part. And as we start to come to the end of the underwater tunnel here, we get told, hey, let's push hard on this climb. So that way, we see how they respond and what kind of response we get from them. So you see, I ramp up my power again, and we start to push hard. They respond immediately, um, which is in a way great to see because that just lets us know that hey, they're not going to let us get away with anything. But I'm pushing as hard as I can, to get up this climb and stay with our guys. And as you can see, one of our guys ends up using the burrito to help kind of slow them down a bit, um, and make them, or make them work a little bit harder. And so you know, as that rider comes up, I think it's, I gotta double check the name, but, so as he comes up, he is, you know, ultimately getting, you know, getting it done. 'Cause that's, that's how the burrito is used. We just got to make sure that we're not in front of our own guys when we use it. So as you can see, I'm on the front, doing my best to push the pace and stay in that, 20-minute power zone. Um, but also, thinking about how I can kind of conserve energy because as we get out of the gravel here, um, even though I've raced this stage once earlier this week, I still kind of felt like it was unfamiliar territory. So as trainer comes up to the front, I start to, recognize like, oh, I know where this is going. We're going to slope up into the Italian villas and then come back down the volcano side. And so I know that with my legs already in a lot of pain, absolutely a lot of pain, I end up using my draft bus because I needed to, give myself more time to rest, especially after that last hard effort. My legs are absolutely on fire. And so as we, group up here, we're just, looking at getting to the top. And so fast forwarding again, we are just cruising along at this point. Um, Not really, easing off the pace a lot, staying in that mid to upper twos, but just kind of holding tight there. Just trying to stay in the draft as much as I can, because again, knowing that we're approaching Jarvis Island, I'm going to need as much of my power as I can to, be able to kick through the Jarvis KOM and potentially sprint. And so I'm trying to do my best to kind of stay in the middle of the group, back of the group. You can see we all shift to the left again because their guy was out in the wind and wanted to leave him out in the wind. And so anytime that happened, we just, did our best to do that. And so as we start to come down the back of the dirty Suppressa, um, we get told by Craig, hey, let's push on this downhill and see what they've got because it looked like they were starting to kind of fall apart. And so we wanted to, really continue to push the envelope. And so you can see we end up pushing the pace up. I'm in the, upper threes, low fours. And at this point, trying to hold on. You can sort of see it in my face. I don't have both my cameras set up because of the issues I've been having, but you can sort of see the expression on my face that I am struggling, um, and just doing my best to kind of stay chipper on the Discord in what the guys are talking about. But you see, we're just kind of little by little pushing through as we can in order to keep the pace harder. And just again, for me, working that 20-minute to 5-minute power zone, just, really I'm trying to get my 5-minute power up. So I'm constantly looking at my peak 5-minute power in sauce and seeing if that's pushing upward. I was hovering in the 3.7 basically the entire stage. And so I knew that with the way I felt, I don't think I was going to be able to push any harder than that today. And so we're still, the four of us off the front doing our best to kind of, in a way, time trial it and just really see how much we can make them work for, this approach into Jarvis. So just to kind of ramp up the pace a little bit here as we start to approach Jarvis. Again, we are still pushing. You see their guys end up pushing hard to get on terms with us and just get up to the front. You see there one guy out to the right hand side still, and he is just, it seems like he is perfectly okay with being there because there's a lot of instances where he's out there and not, he'll push hard and get up front, but not really, you know, not really try to, work to get back into the draft. Maybe I don't know if he was or wasn't, but like I said, he was out in the wind a lot. And so as we start to approach the line, again, we're just trying to push the pace and stay on it so that way we can, once we cross the line, we got that TFC rider in between us. So, we wanted to cross the line, get our power ups, and then get in front of them. But, as it is with Jarvis quickly approaching, weren't able to truly execute on any plan at the moment. But we're still, grouped together, the four of us, with the two TFC riders. The third rider is still there. They're still hanging on, so it's not over yet for them. And so we push to the left a little bit. And at this point, I'm actually starting to have trouble uh, with my paddles, my left hand paddle. For some reason, I was hitting my paddle, trying to get to the left, and it wasn't always working. And so as we start hitting this climb, I'm starting to feel it and get, ultimately getting dropped. And then, guys are encouraging me. Craig's, you know, pushing me to, move up. And so I let him know, hey, I'll push up, I'll get to the right and launch my burrito. So that way, I can ultimately make that rider work harder than need be. And so as you can see, that person just pushes past me as my burrito runs out and ultimately gets ahead of me. So we got trainer is in there and off to the left, and so I'm being told, hey, shift to the left, but it's just not working for me, you know, and it'll work and then not work, not work, which is just frustrating, absolutely frustrating. Because at this point, not only am I losing steam because my legs are cooked, but I'm also losing the draft because I'm not able to jump in behind Ryan. And so thankfully Ryan is able to ease back a little bit and then pull me up to the group again, which I was so appreciative of that because I truly believe if it wasn't for Ryan pulling me back up, I don't know that I could have finished on Jarvis the way that I did. And so as we approach the last part of the KOM, I'm doing my best to just kind of stay with the group, knowing that as we hit as we hit the last part of the climb here, I'm going to need to push hard to get up front. You see one of their guys ends up using their burrito, which is the clip from the beginning, use their burrito, and that put me in a real bad spot because I was just struggling to stay on with them, and my legs just weren't moving, man. It felt like they were, lead weights at this point. And so uh, one of our guys jumps in front of me and, he's able to kind of keep up with them and catch up. I'm still kind of hurting here. We got Ryan behind me as well. And as Ryan passes through, I do my best to latch on to him. And so Ryan, once again, ends up pulling me up to that front group as best as possible, even though they've got a little bit of a distance on us right now. They're about, 6 seconds ish up to Riz and 3 seconds up to Thurman. And so, Ryan and I are just kind of working together to get up to them as best as possible. As I end up on the front, I do my best to give a bit of a push going up this hill, so that way we can, get as close to them as possible. Because if we can catch up, then we can, really make the sprint lively, and give it the best we got. Especially me still having my burrito, uh, and so as we're coming down the backside of Jarvis, now it is, we're getting close, but it still feels like we're miles away. Because, at least for me at this point, my heart rate's in the 170s, and I feel like I've got absolutely nothing left after that climb. And I'm doing my best to, stay on Ryan's wheel in order to, you see Ryan shifted out to the left, but that was just because my paddle's not, wasn't functioning. So I'm trying to shift out to the left to stay behind Ryan, in order to, to get on with him. So Ryan ends up shifting to the right, so he can, bring me back onto his wheel. And so as we pass the banner there, which, man, I should have used my burrito before that banner, because if I would have gotten a draft bus, I think that would have made for a better sprint possibility. And so you see, we're only a couple seconds off the back of these guys, but at this point, I am hurting to try and get back on. My legs are absolutely on fire. I got Ryan, behind me about 8-10 meters back, um, and so to, I didn't want to wait for him to come up and try and pull me forward once again, even though him being the monster that he is, ends up, catching up to me and jumping on my draft. And I get told, hey, sprint as hard as you can to get up to the front. And as you can see, my effort at this moment was 500, just under 600 watts, 500 watts. I'm trying to, I tried to, push as hard as I can, but my legs were absolutely cooked after this race. Now I have some thoughts and theories and as to why that was, um, because I ended up not being able to execute my nutrition plan exactly how I have done it in the past few races. So there's some things there, but ultimately, as you can see, cross the line in fifth place with Ryan right behind me. In sixth, again, thank you to Ryan for all the time he spent off the front and pulling me forward, through the last little bit. And congratulations to TFC, because, man, that rider Beatty was an absolute monster. Being out in the wind as much as he was, and still coming in first place, fantastic racer. Again, Riz in second place podium, and Pedersen in podium. So congratulations, guys. On the TFC side, great, great, great show up, great turnout, great racing. But ultimately, points wise, the 30 watts Crabz, 30 Crabz takes the win. So if you enjoyed this race, feel free to find us. Let us know if you want to join, because this is the kind of racing that you never know what you're going to get, but it's always going to be hard and it's always going to be fun. So I will catch you guys on the next race.
Hey guys, it's Miguel from that thing you just watched. Hope you enjoyed that video, whether it was topic on nutrition or racing or a combination of both. Feel free to come back. I will continue to put out videos like this and continue to showcase what you can do with smart nutritional strategies, combining that with racing, because that is what this channel is all about. And feel free to check in if you want to see more racing. Click on wherever the link's at, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next race.